Let's call the meeting to order and get a roll call, please.
Dr. Beebe?
Here.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bofi? Ms. Bofi is present. Ms. Bradford? Ms. Bradford is not present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Gio?
Present.
Mr. Gio is present. Ms. Hill? Ms. Hill is present. Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee is not present. Dr. Moranti?
Present.
Dr. Moranti is present. Ms. Orange Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange Jones is present. Mr. Romer? Mr. Romer is not in attendance. Ms. Smith?
Present.
Ms. Smith is present. You have a quorum.
Okay, can we have our first item?
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of a status report on types 2, 4, and 5 charter schools. The department recommendation is to receive.
Okay, can we get a motion to address this item?
I'll move.
I second.
Mr. Gio, and second by Ms. Jones. Superintendent White, did you have any comments?
Sure. Members, I just wanted to highlight that I hope you do get a chance to look at the report. Oftentimes, there's so many reports per meeting, but I think that the report is both well laid out and at the same time the information contained within it is really compelling, and I believe the board should be proud of what's entailed here. It essentially looks at type 2, 4, and 5 charters, which are the schools that are authorized by BESE. And what you see is that they are being chosen by parents. We now have 6% of students across the state served in a charter school, but also that they're doing well. This year they grew 7.2 points of SPS this year, which outpaced the rest of the state. They did that with a student population that is higher need than on average across the state, and overall deserve our recommendation or our commendation. They're not the entirety of our strategy by any stretch. They remain a relatively small part of the system, but in many of our parishes, especially our urban parishes, they are a critical part of the reforms, and they're working. And I commend the board's authorizing decisions, as well as the charter team here at the department, Adam Hoff and others, and our charter leaders and teachers. And I thank you for your support of charter schools. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Do we have any questions from Ms. Hill?
Yes, I have a question on page 16. George, I guess it's George Washington Carver. When the school performance score says, because for example, this school did not receive a school performance score or a letter grade, it says because it had insignificant number of testers to legally report data. So could you expound what is insignificant number of testers in the Superintendent White?
Sure. There are both state and federal rules around the ability to publish test score information, and where there is an insufficient number of testers, either you don't have enough students to report it because of federal law, or there aren't enough students who took a test to generate a school performance score.
Okay, so
and part of the reason in these schools, just to dig into that a little bit, they only have 9th grades in the year that was covered, because they're just starting out schools. They're starting with 9th grades, and because 9th graders generally take only one end of course test, and not every 9th grader takes an end of course test, you have probably fewer than 40 kids in these schools that take any state test. Now, this year that won't be the case. This year you'll have a 9th and a 10th grade there, and so when we deliver this report next year, you'll have more kids in these schools taking those tests.
Okay, so I'm currently familiar with the federal law that if any student, if per grade, if there's a subgroup less than 10 in a grade level, that they cannot, that report as far as data cannot be released because the student will be easy to be identified. So do we take, for example, if there is a school that have grades, that have testing grades, do we add all the grade levels together? So will we add the 4th grade, 8th grade, I'm just using, for example, if it's the elementary school, scores and middle school scores together to get a subgroup? Or I guess my question would be, if a school has a 4th grade and they only have 9 students, but then they have a 5th grade that's taking an I-Leap that have 8 students, do we add those 2 scores together to give a score, or because the testing grades have less than 10, they can't receive a score?
It really depends what number you're going for. If you're going to report on the entire school. In other words, if the question is what percentage of the entire school is proficient, then you could combine those two grade levels and you could report it. If you're just talking about each individual grade, well, then in that third grade you couldn't report it because they only have 9. So it's just about are you asking about not you, but is one asking about the individual grade or the whole school?
Okay, so it depends on, so if it's the whole school, we'll take all the
Yeah, exactly.
the scores, and then so will we take the LEAP and the ILEAP scores together, because the measurements are different? So for the ILEAP, the assessment is different, meaning the test, and for the LEAP, the assessment is different. So will we still do that and still get an accurate outcome? On
Well,
two
it
different
depends what
measurements?
question you're asking. If you're asking in the entire school, how many kids are at basic or above, for example, or mastery or above, you could answer that by using the ILEAP and the LEAP. But if you're just asking on the 4th grade, well, then you have to really look at how many kids do you have in the 4th grade.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from BESE members? If not, we have speaker Deborah Moe, LAE.
I took a look at the report that was attached to this agenda item. And on page 12 of the report, I guess it's a PowerPoint, it states that there are 9.2% of all public schools that are charter schools. The other 90, almost 91%, are those regular public schools, or does that include any other type of school other than voucher? I'm sorry, other than charter?
It includes the Louisiana school. It includes NOCA. It includes some of the special school district schools. So there's 4 or 5 other schools it includes.
Okay. That was the first pie chart. The second pie chart was high-performing, high-poverty schools. 38% of those were charter schools. The other 60, almost 62% were public schools. Can you give me the number of high-performing, high-poverty schools that this actually covers? It's obviously not going to be every school.
I'd be happy to provide that. It's less than 100 is the total group, but I'd be happy to provide it after the meeting. Our staff will look that up and provide it to you.
Okay. The reason I ask all of this is just simply, and I know that the point of the report is to highlight charter schools, but I would like the department also to highlight our public schools. The second pie chart simply means that we had not quite twice as many of our public schools that were as good or better than the charters. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions from BESE members at this time? Hearing none?
I have a quick.
Yes, Ms.
I
Jones.
want to commend the department for this report. I thought it was very informative. In particular, just want to commend the educators in New Orleans, who I think many of which were recognized for bonus points, et cetera. But I think the number might be, Superintendent, actually 22 schools. I could be off by a number or two, so 22 schools.
It is 22, yeah.
And secondly, my thinking on that pie chart, just to kind of get your reaction to this, is that there's a disproportionate amount of charters who are serving high poverty students who are high performing relative to the overall number of charters. Would you, is that?
I would agree with you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 22, item 2.2, consideration of a report on types 2, 4, and 5 charter contracts and requests for amendments. The department recommendation is to approve.
And before we take a motion on this, Mr. Superintendent, I think you were looking to change the recommendation?
I was. Members, in the time since we made this recommendation and put this online, we have delved more deeply into one situation, and that is the Delta Charter School, and it is our judgment that this school is not ready to add the grade levels that it had proposed to add here. I would ask that you delete that from the recommendation and that we instead proceed with the 3 other adjustments. I thank our team as well as local folks in the Concordia Parish area for talking this issue through with us. I think this school is going to continue to grow and parents will continue to choose it, but I think we've arrived at a conclusion that for now, unless other information is available, this level of growth is not something that we would support.
Okay. With that in mind, do we have a motion to approve the department's current recommendation? Ms. Smith? We're going to get a motion on the floor. We have a second. Mr. Guillo, thank you. Okay. Do we have questions from BESE members? Ms. Hill?
Okay, I'll start with this one. The North Shore Charter School, according to what they're asking, well, the department asking for approval, currently the school serves K through 3rd grade and 9th. However, they want to add 5th grade. What about 4th? They don't want 4th grade or 8th grade?
They will be, the 3rd graders will become 4th graders. That's
Okay.
the natural growth, and we're also adding 5th grade. Yep.
Okay, and then they currently have 9th grade. So those 5th graders, I guess, what about 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade?
Well, ultimately, the kids will get older, and then the kids will go into a grade above.
Okay, I guess okay. So currently, I'm just trying to process this in my
Sure,
mind.
yeah.
So currently, they have K through 3rd grade. Of course, each year they're going to add a grade level. And they have 9th grade on site currently, correct?
Right.
Okay, wow. So the 9th grade students, the 8th grade students, where they're coming from to go into the 9th grade? What other schools are they're coming?
Well, there's Bogalusa Middle, for example, Bogalusa Junior, for example. I couldn't list off the other schools off the top of my head in their immediate proximity, but most of the kids are coming from the city of Bogalusa school system,
Okay,
which is where the school is located.
Okay. This is totally confusing. Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that one. Secondly, Lassie Francais, and I'm quite sure we have had very controversial dialogues as BESE member in regards to Lassie Francais, and I have had the opportunity to go visit the school on numerous occasions. Currently, they're asking for us to increase their kindergarten enrollment from 100 to 150 students. However, they're also saying that they don't have the space to currently have at the 8th and 9th grade for the 2014-2015 school year. So my concern would be if they don't have the space to add the grades that are recommended in their original proposal, why are we giving them more students?
I think in their
For
case,
kindergarten, for kindergarten.
in their case, this is really about what they're ready to do from a teaching perspective. So you're talking about 2 very different bands of students. By not adding the 8th grade this year, then they essentially delay starting the 9th grade until 2015-2016, which is when they believe they're going to be ready to start high school. This is a question about wanting to allow this school a chance to get it right. Starting a high school is obviously a big deal. It's a big change, and that's really what this is about. While still allowing the school to serve more kids. There's a significant wait list at the school, and we want to allow them to have more kids. And by the way, I want to take this moment. There's been, we have, since I've been coming to these meetings for 3 years, we've been talking in various iterations about this school. And I just want to highlight, board members, how much I appreciate the trust that you showed in the department a year ago by allowing us to intervene with the Charter School Association in the board proceedings there. We have a brand new board. We have a brand new principal who comes to New Orleans from Lafayette, who's doing a fantastic job. And I really do urge you to visit the school if you get a chance. It's a real example of when committed board members come in, can turn around a charter school, and they're doing a fantastic job. So I thank you for the faith that you showed in them and in the department.
Well, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for doing a good job with what we asked you to help us with.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, I was
Ms. Hill.
Yeah. Also, in regards to, because I think this was one of the major issues when the parents from Lassie Francais came to the board to express some of the issues at the school, which was in regards to they were saying that they were currently servicing at-risk children. And even looking at the free and reduced lunch, 27% of their students are on free and reduced lunch, which says a lot for me in understanding the concept of free and reduced lunch. So I see within the new proposal that you guys, that LDOE is asking us to approve, is that the one app is going to serve as making sure that the percentage of at-risk children increase based on the one app application, Superintendent White? Because I know that that has been a very critical issue at that school in regards to, and I visited the school, and so that is one of my major concerns. If we're going to,
it's a concern of ours as well with any school. I agree with you. And so, actually, this year in one app, Lycée Français will give preference to students who are at risk, who are socioeconomically at risk this year, so as to increase that number. So having the enrollment system and having the Type 2 charters participate in the enrollment system allows us to assign students in a way that gives preference to at-risk kids. And so I think we're going to address your problem, your concern head on.
Okay. Any other?
And I also want to point out as well, I think it was maybe last year, the group came before us, and I think they were ready to accept students in grade 1, and they did not meet the French prerequisite skills. And at that point in time, I thought, well, because I was principal of an immersion school, and I said, you know, these children will be challenged if they lack those skills going to higher grades. So I see that this has been addressed in this proposal.
Yeah, I think you were right on the money, and we are addressing it in this instance. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we have some speakers. I'd like to note that we have Tim Grant here with LFNO, who is here to answer any questions if BESE members have any. But our first speaker is Mary Dwyer. Okay. Second speaker is Ms. Lee Barrios.
Lee Barrios, St. Tammany, retired teacher. I have a couple problems with this request, and they've been expressed to me by a number of parents from LifeNote, actually. Part of the request is to increase the kindergarten enrollment from 100 to 150 students, and according to the agenda, it says to ensure space for its pre-K 4-year-old students moving into kindergarten. It doesn't say, what it doesn't indicate is that it's to ensure space for its paid pre-K 4-year-old students. So that really is the major reason for opening that up. Also, to require a language proficiency requirement to return to first grade. It's my understanding that is a form of selectivity. But I wanted to read to you what is actually the atmosphere actually at the school from the Uptown Messenger, which is a local publication. This is from the board meeting. It says, this year, Lycée Français is required to enter the citywide one-app common enrollment process, and school leaders worry that far too many children will apply for kindergarten for such a technique to be, quote, practical. In other words, to allow their, for one thing, their paid pre-K students to all get into kindergarten. Instead, the school's new CEO, Keith Bartlett, began Saturday's meeting by recommending the school make a clear policy that all preschool students, except siblings of current students, which are given admission by law, participate in the same lottery with new applicants. My heart goes out to the parents of the children here, but if we're ever going to come near having the diversity we're called to have legally, we have to take this bold and contentious step. Because the school's charters through the state, as opposed to Orleans Parish, it should have an at-risk population of 67%. Last year, it reportedly had 40%. Quote, it almost seems like you're buying your way into school, and that to me is almost a legal issue, said committee member Melanie Dezat. 3 of the 4 parents in the audience praised the move as well, but about the same number with children in preschool took strong exception to it. While they knew kindergarten admission was never guaranteed for them, they were led to expect it because they paid for it. It's not fair that they've been investing their tuition and their volunteer efforts for a school that may turn them away. Not all those 80 preschool students would have to enter the lottery. However, in pre-K 4, 19 are siblings and will be granted automatic admission. 28 qualify for free and reduced lunch and will be given priority admission for at-risk students. In a kindergarten class of 125, that would leave 33 paid preschoolers vying for 78 remaining spots. Lizette Board Member Ann Meese made a recommendation that differed from Bartlett's, asking the state for a one-year waiver. I feel embarrassed that we've created this situation. Another member, Young, said we need to get on the right path as soon as possible. This conversation sends out a message to the entire population, whether we are welcoming of a diverse population. This school is still struggling with its requirement to be an open admissions public school. This is my input. Requiring French proficiency does create a selective admissions, as far as I understand, and that would be illegal. I would suggest that BESE not intervene to perpetuate this ongoing infraction of the law and its own policy. This school has struggled with many issues and appears to have new administration that could stabilize it and move it forward as a viable option for all children. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is April Bruns, concerned Bogalusa parent.
Hello, I'm here on behalf of parents in Bogalusa as well as a community leader. For a number of years, we worked to get the charter school on board in Bogalusa. I want to thank each of you for the consideration and the hard work that you're putting toward our city. I'm coming today on behalf of other parents that are not afforded the opportunity to be here. I am glad that I am. I want to say that the city as well as the parents are definitely behind the charter school. I myself am a parent. I have a 4th grader, and I, of course, have the vested interest in education of all the children there. And I won't be long today, but I did want to mention that we are very fortunate. We don't have a lot of choice in Bogalusa as far as the schools, and as opposed to putting our children on the road to another parish, we would like to keep that education choice in Bogalusa. So, again, I say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Members, I just want to commend what is going on in Bogalusa again, and I visited the school. They have procured a space that used to be a military, I believe it's a National Guard type facility on the outskirts of town in Bogalusa, but it serves kids from across Washington Parish and really concentrated in Bogalusa. The administration is a totally inspired group, and we're doing this in a community where choice is new and options are new, and I commend the board, and I commend, really more importantly, the administration, the staff, and the parents of the school that are making this work in a community that doesn't have as many options today as they, or didn't have as many as they have today. So congratulations and thank you for your hard work.
Okay. Next we have Julie Rodriguez, and if we could also have Felicia Workman come down too, that would be helpful. Ms. Rodriguez?
Hello, I'm Julie Rodriguez. I'm the director of North Shore Charter School. This is Felicia Workman. She's my chief operations officer. And we just wanted to take a moment to say thank you and to tell you that we did want to add 5th grade. It was due to our parents who have students in 2 different systems right now, and other parents in the community, as you just heard from, who don't have students who are able to be in our facility, who are requesting this additional grade level be added next year so that we can give more choice and help our students in our community in Bogalusa.
Okay. Ms. Workman, would you like to comment?
I think Ms. Rodriguez said everything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions from BESE members? Ms. Beebe.
Well, I just want to point out, just to respond to Ms. Barrios' concern, the fact is there are charters that have a mission focus, and therefore it is of concern. It has always been of concern to me. But I have to go back in this summary support statement. So as I understand, pre-K students who pay are enrolled and they get an automatic transfer if they meet the criteria to go on to kindergarten. And so we're not applying the one-app rule there. In other words, they don't become a part of the lottery.
Well, it is. They get preference in the lottery, but the way that we ensure that there's diversity in the early class is, one, they have to participate in the one-app process. Two, we expanded kindergarten. Three, you then have a non-selective kindergarten population with preference for low-income status. So in other words, any student who is new to the school comes through an open applicant process, and students who are low income are given preference in that process. We opened more kindergarten seats to achieve that. So we really shouldn't have many, if any, new kids coming in first grade. We should be taking in kids in kindergarten, preference for low income. They're taught French, therefore they're French proficient in first grade, and that's how the system moves ahead.
Okay, but you didn't answer the question about the pre-K tuition.
Yes, that is why pre-kindergarten students are able to move up into kindergarten. The reason we feel comfortable with that is that that will not create an imbalance of more well-to-do students, because any other student coming into kindergarten is going through a process of admissions where low-income students are given preference. Now let me add a link to this. For an independent charter school to offer pre-kindergarten is not an easy thing because of some of the challenges that we heard about earlier today. So whether it's a public school traditional, whether it's a public school charter, offering pre-kindergarten seats where maybe a private payer pays is sometimes necessitated because of the funding issues. So that being the case, then you have a real-life question of, should you offer that kid a kindergarten seat? We think you should, but we think you should balance it by offering many low-income kids that seat. And that's what the school is committed to doing, and I thank them for doing that.
Okay, I guess my question would be,
Ms. Hill?
yes, I had the opportunity to go visit the other site as well, which serves pre-K for, and most of those students are paying students. Not most, all are paying students. However, I know they had a contract with Macmillan in regards to their students. So how are we, do they still have that contract with Macmillan School in regards to the high risk? Because it's not indicated in here.
They do not have that contract.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Okay.
And just one other point. When
Ms.
we
Beebe?
look, am I in order?
Yes. No.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Ms. Beebe.
When we look at, my concern is that we're asking, we have the initial charter application, and then we're asking for expansion without a true picture of experience. I just think perhaps maybe we're rushing without having an opportunity to view progress.
Well, I think in the case of the one school, I would agree with you. We took a pause, said let's not consider that right now for the reason you described. But anytime you say you can't add a grade level, you're essentially saying to however many parents would rather have their kids in that school, you can't come here. So you got to make a decision one way or the other, and the kid has to go somewhere. And I think in these three cases, we're affirming we believe the parent should be able to place a child here rather than saying no to the parent.
But are we
You can take issue
ensuring
with
that
that.
quality is in place? I mean, we had this first group that you pulled, or that we pulled, a semester. What does that tell you?
Every indication is that yes, there is quality being provided. But secondly, the question still stands, the student has to go somewhere. And so the question is, would you rather say, no, you can't come here, and you have to go over there instead? And then the question is, how much can we ensure quality over there? Or would you say, we think the parent is probably the better arbiter of where quality is? In the absence of perfect information, which there almost never is, we believe that the parent in these cases is the better arbiter. Now, in the case of the Delta School, I would agree with you. I thought that the data that had presented themselves gave me concern about whether or not we were heading in the right direction given the available information, and we said no, we're pulling it back.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion?
Object.
Ms. Hill? Any other objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
That concludes the agenda.
Thank you. We're breaking for lunch?
Yeah, we're going to reconvene at 12:30.
So we
The next meeting, EE, will begin at 12:30, educator effectiveness.
That, you want more? 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Yeah, 12:45.
12:45. 12:45.